All right, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on computer science, coding, and solving real-world problems after school. Heather, I'll let you start us out.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar this morning. We can go ahead and advance to the next slide. Great, so I'm just gonna kick us off. We'll jump right in with some introductions. My name is Heather Williams. I'm the Program Director for Policy and Outreach with the California After-School Network. And today with us, we have Chris Brazil. He is the Education Programs Consultant at the CDE Expand and Learning Division, who oversees the Kids Code program. We have An-Mei Chung, who is a fellow for CSforALL. Stephanie Couch, who's the Executive Director for the Lemelson-MIT Program. And then we also have Leigh Estabrooks, who is an Invention Education Officer with Lemelson-MIT. And if we can go to the next slide. So just quickly, I'm not going to read through this, but the California After School Network is really, our purpose is to increase access for out-of-school time programs across California, specifically promoting high quality. We have three main goals that you can see here on the screen, but we talk about quality a lot. That is one of our main goals. And then we're also one-stop communication hub. So today's webinar really is that partnership with these other organizations so that we can provide this important information on kids code, computer science, coding, all of that for you today. And if we can advance to the next slide. So just briefly, I want to flag for you all that in addition to this webinar, there will likely be several follow-up events where we expand on the information, respond to questions that come up. And so one of those upcoming opportunities will be the California Expand and Learning Summits this fall. Those are co-hosted by CAN and the California Department of Education. And so those will be taking place in Sacramento, Bakersfield, San Diego. Specific dates for each of those locations is coming very soon. But during each of those summits, we will be setting aside time to focus primarily on kids code, and so for those that are able to attend in person to those summits, we'll actually offer some sort of workshop or other interactive engagement where we can get more in depth in this content. So with that, advance to the next slide. And I'm not sure if Chris was able to get on. Okay, so Chris is here. Chris, if you want to message me a quick point or two that you would like to share, but as I mentioned earlier, Chris is the Education Programs Consultant at the Expanded Learning Division at CDE, and he oversees the Kids Code program. And so they just recently announced the awards for those, and that funding is going out across the state. We had over 1,500 applicants that applied for more than $88 million in funding. And we were able to fund 86 of those grantees. And all of that information is on the CDE website in case you are interested in seeing who the other grantees are. That equals about 260 sites in all 11 regions. So the funding was distributed so that there would be sites in each of those 11 regions that would receive funding. And if you are interested in learning more, you can submit questions at the end or reach out to Chris, but that's it for now. And so with that, we'll advance to the next slide. And I will turn it over to An-Mei.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Can you all hear me?
Sure can.
Great. Okay. My name is An-Mei Chung, and I'm a fellow at CSforALL. And my focus at CSforALL as a fellow is actually figuring out how to integrate the out-of-school time programs like after-school, summer, libraries and museums, and any other youth development programs in the out-of-school time hours on how to best integrate CSforALL with the out-of-school time hours. Next slide. So what is CSforALL? For those of you who don't know, we are an organization that is focused on creating a movement to become the central resource for individual and organizations who are interested in computer science education for young people, particularly those kids in K through 12. Our goal is to connect people from all sectors, including schools, after-school funders, researchers, or providers, to really work together to figure out what's the best way to provide quality computer science education for every child in the U.S. Next slide. So we also want to be clear that it's about moving beyond just coding, because I think for the most part, people have a pretty good understanding that coding is an important piece, but we want to take it to the next step and help people recognize that computer science is the new basic skill, and it's a fundamental pathway to help us through STEM and other careers, but it's also about life skills as well in general. And that it's really important for us to help young people understand that these computational skills in the digital world today are what's needed to become better communicators, be more creative, innovator, and basically it is the critical thinking skills that are needed in today's world. Next slide. So there are challenges, and I think that we are at the beginning of the opportunity to be able to figure out how best to do this, and you can see that the challenges are very clear. Most students don't have access to this. A lot of people haven't quite yet established this as a discipline, and we have to be able to train students and providers and teachers with the capacity to actually serve all the kids who need it. And this is where after school comes in and the out of school time hours come in, because after school has the capacity to provide young people with what I call interest-driven real world learning opportunities, and in a space at a time that allows for creativity and flexibility. It can really offer a great complement to what's happening in the in-school learning, and that's a big part of what we're trying to do in terms of really making the most efficient use of the in and out of school time and be able to bridge that opportunity. And a lot of after-school programs are doing it to some degree already and aren't calling it computer science necessarily, but have been working on projects such as robotics and other pieces like this. Other programs are doing, you know, maker spaces, etc. But we're at a moment in time where California can really, you know, take the lead in providing the opportunity to expand this in other states. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through these next three slides either, but I wanted you all to get a sense of what CSforALL does provide. And so they really focus on three major things. One is support local change, and these are the aspects of local change that currently exist. When you all get the PowerPoint, you can make links to each of these areas in terms of that. Next slide. The other is increasing rigor and equity. Equity is a big part of what CSforALL is focused on. And as you can see, there are a number of projects that are getting to really increase those opportunities. And oops, sorry about that. And you can see that those are it. So again, I would link onto those pieces and make sure that you all, you know, dig into it deeper when you get a chance. Next slide. And the last slide is these projects and other programs that we're doing. So it's about growing the movement. So we have initiatives such as the membership group, the CSforALL Summit, which happens once a year, and a Slack channel, as well as Twitter and Facebook. So hope you guys get a chance to take a look at that, and I'll turn it over to the next person so we can get into the meat of what this webinar is really about.
There we go. All right. This is Stephanie Couch, and I'm here presenting with my colleague Lee Estabrooks from the Lemelson-MIT Program. And let me tell you a little bit background information about who we are. So the Lemelson-MIT Program is funded by the Lemelson Foundation and administered through the School of Engineering at MIT. And we've been a fully funded program in this way for the past 25 years. For 15 of those years, the last 15, we've been working with teachers and other educators, including after-school professionals and students, to help them develop the kinds of ways of thinking and ways of working that we see in many of the inventors that you find at MIT. We also have separate programs where we give prizes to college students who invent solutions to problems, and also to mid-career inventors. And so we spend a lot of time with those folks trying to understand their pathways and how they got to be inventors and what kinds of things young people need to have opportunities to learn in order to get to where they are. So in our Invention education work, we have students developing technological solutions that solve real-world problems that the students and their teachers have identified. So I've been at this work personally 3 years after coming here from the rest of my career in California. And I wanted to understand the secret sauce. How is it that high school kids, and we work with, you know, a lot of schools that have high concentrations of poverty, very diverse schools. You know, we are not a program that just targets kids who've had years and years of robotics training. So how is it that these diverse teams of kids are creating inventions, 8 of which have received patents after being part of this year-long program? And so when we've been digging in and doing research, we're finding that we looked at 3 young girls, 3 young boys. We found that the boys who were coming to us had had experiences with people they knew in their family lives. They'd had experiences in the school day, in engineering and in STEM, and they'd done a lot of work outside school, and they'd had those experiences all the way from elementary school on up. The young women that we were finding in our high school programs, this was the first time that they were experiencing STEM and working in a team-based format on a STEM-oriented project. And yet at the end of that experience, they were able to see themselves as inventors and innovators and developed a sense of confidence that we didn't see that they had had historically in their educational trajectory. So looking deeper into some of the end-of-year experience data and the information the students give back to us, these are high school students, when we disaggregated that by boys and girls, we were able to see that part of what the young women were bringing to the team was a belief in their strengths as leaders, belief in their ability to be innovators, ability to be creators and makers. And again, here you see on the right side of the slide that the males were bringing in a confidence with engineering. And so I think part of what this data is telling me is that one of the reasons we are able to form diverse teams that succeed is that it is a team-based approach to learning and to exploring how you can use technology and coding and STEM in order to solve a problem that the students cared about, and a belief that the girls can be a part of it because they know they bring strengths, and then they recognize other strengths they have for technology purposes as they go along. So these teams that we've worked with and teachers across the nation, when we look at where they're coming from, outside Massachusetts, the next biggest group is California. So we kind of feel like we already are a bit bi-coastal. And so when we saw this opportunity that has been offered for the after-school programs, we thought, okay, we really need to dig in. And Lee's going to tell you more about some of the work we've been doing in California the past several years.
Can you back up a slide? Thank you. So just to give you a little bit of information about our work in California, yes, we have had 20 fabulous Invent teams in California, but we've also been in the after-school space in another one of our grants initiatives called Junior Varsity Invent Teams. And we have been primarily in Southern California through Beyond the Bell, where we went in and worked with not only the 21st Century Community Learning Center sites, but also with Boys and Girls Clubs to encourage young people to consider what it means to be creative and inventive. And so now next slide. So with our junior varsity invent teams, we've made available activity guides as well as the materials necessary to be inventors. And here are our 8 current activity guides. We'll have a 9th one coming online in the fall. All of these activity guides are tied to standards. But to be clear, inventing is just plain fun. So the kids really enjoy working on whether it's wearable technology or designing their own shoe soles. They learn about optics while they're designing super lenses. So these JV Invent Team activities have been really popular across the United States. We have focused primarily though on Massachusetts, California, Oregon, and Texas with JV Invent Teams. Next slide. So this is what a JV Invent Team guide looks like. This one, showing you 2 pages here where we do have notes for the educators. We introduce key terms. Of course, since we are building with students, we do focus on safety. And we actually work through the process of inventing, working with tools, materials, and going through procedures. And again, this is electronic textiles, and we do have 8 themed units that we're currently working with. Next slide. Now, some of you, as I see there are 53 participants today, and thank you all for joining us. But some of you might be wondering, well, invention, what does that have to do with computer science? Well, it has a lot to do with computer science. Some of our JV Invent Team units are more explicit than others about the ways we can expand invention into the CT and CS arena. And I just wanted to point out one of our exemplary groups of young inventors who are located in Rolling Hills Estates, California. And this is a group of young people who started out with junior varsity invent teams. They have an extraordinary teacher or educator in the after-school space. And he actually introduced many other aspects to JV Invent Teams, including, here's a lily pad Arduino that he utilized with the electronic textiles units. And he worked with a young group of students up to the point where they actually applied for and received a Varsity Invent Teams grant of $10,000. And this year they are a current grantee, and we're super proud of the educator, George, and his team of young inventors. So next, please. So now Stephanie's going to give you some ways that we foresee supporting some of the opportunities that we can work together.
Yeah, so again, going back to what we found from our research is that a lot of the young women who get attracted to work with inventing at the high school level are coming in because they want to be part of helping people and problem solving. And we would really love to be able to see more women coming into that work at the high school level who've also had opportunities to learn how to code and work with technologies from the earlier ages and bring that as part of their toolkit. And so we're really super excited about the work that you all are going to be doing. And so we were asking ourselves, how can we support this wonderful effort? And so one is for us to go deeper into the free materials we have that we think do engage young women, and to provide more in-depth information about how they can be brought together with coding. So that's what we'd like to do with a follow-on webinar on April 29th, actually have some of the educators who blended the two so we can offer that. And also, we're now looking at going down into the elementary grades and doing some more development work so that there can be invention-oriented activities that are beginning to teach computer science and computational thinking in the elementary grades. And we're looking at doing something around toy design. And so we would be interested in partnering with those of you who are interested in either coding and toy design at the elementary level, or taking these free resources and adding coding your own way, and we can bring some individuals with some of the expertise in the different technology programs together with you as you design and develop, and we could also put some resource behind documenting the models you build. So that we can be sharing those at the summits that Heather talked about earlier. We'd love to share out those who innovate and bring these things together in new ways so that we can support the whole field. And then we are offering a professional development workshop this summer. And we'll be sending out some additional information about that. It's July 22nd through 24th with one of our experienced Invention educators in Tustin. But the following week, we're also having one in Boston in case anybody wanted to come out and join us out here in Boston. Next slide. So again, getting excited about the wonderful work you all will be doing. We started reaching out to our colleagues on campus and said, if we have after-school programs in California that want to add coding in some way to the resources we have in the JV Invent Team program, would you want to be part of the dialogue and have conversations with educators? And we got a whole lot of people expressing a lot of interest in doing that. So one of them is the Playful Invention Company. The folks listed here have played key roles in the development of Scratch Junior, for example. Next slide. They have a lot of other kinds of coding programs that they've developed that have been used all over the world. These are a few more examples. You can go to their website and learn more if you'd like. And then another one is the MIT App Inventor. You know, we're in regular contact with the folks who developed that and have deployed it worldwide. And they are willing to consult in the work that you might be doing to design programming. So anyway, we applaud your work. We believe that, you know, here we care about invention, education and inventing at the Lemelson-MIT program. We look at prolific patent holders, and 95% are Asian or white, 90% are male. We think the kinds of things you will be doing and the learning opportunities you're offering to young people from elementary school on up will begin to diversify the folks who have the knowledge to be able to both find problems in communities and to solve them through technological inventions. And so a big thanks. And again, please email us if you would like to be part of a development effort that we can consult with you on. All right, we're going to now turn it to a discussion of any questions and answers that might be in the chat. So please feel free to add a question if you have one from our presentation. Any questions? Great. So there should be a chat button at the very bottom if anybody has any particular questions.
So hi, Mark. How are you? See, you're absolutely interested in partnerships. That's great. So Mark, we'll be reaching back out to you very shortly. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Sure, Mark. What's your question? As we all stare at the chat box. How do you deal with the need for focus on text-based languages as a transferable skill? I think we're going to leave that for our CSforALL. It's on May. Not hearing. Mark, that's a great question. I'm not hearing An May's response, but we will certainly get right back to you with some answers, and maybe you can actually help us be part of the solution there. What's your email? Whose email are we going to give out? Yeah, why don't you, can you add Stephanie's email there? Thank you.
It looks like that's on May. She's responding to Mark asking.
Ah, great. Okay, super.
Yeah. So if there aren't, I don't see questions coming in quite yet, but I guess a question I would pose to those that are on the call, all of our attendees, if you have any specific needs or as you have been looking to implement Kids Code, if there are some challenges or things you would like for partners to assist you with, any of those ideas, feel free to kind of put those into the chat box, and whether we can answer them now or use those for future programming, we can jot those down. I do see a question just came in from Beth. How does your program change the dynamics for young women who do not see a future in engineering due to their life experience?
Yeah, we love this question. We've got this one. And so we're going to tell you a few stories, but I can tell you that young women join these teams a lot of times to be the project leader, the communications person. Each team that we have at the high school level has, the team members have different roles. But by the end, because of the way the program is structured and the activities that everyone on the team does, they've developed a lot of comfort in their ability to work with technology and actual interests in pursuing computer science as a career path or engineering as a career path. And we have way too many stories to tell you about this kind of transformation. So I'm going to tell a quick one from California, and then I'm going to have Lee give you some other specifics, examples. So sitting behind Lee, you see a picture of young women and their tent. This is an example of a group that came from an after-school program down in LA, in the San Fernando Valley. The young women did not have any background in STEM when they took on the project. And I'm going to let Lee tell you what problem they were trying to solve and what they did, and then what happened afterwards. And this is one of hundreds of examples we could give you.
So this is a team of just absolutely remarkable young women. Can you see? I'm going to move a little closer. So here's a picture of the team. The team wanted to help other people. Specifically, they wanted to help women and children who are homeless in LA. And I always learn so much from our young inventors, and I'm so impressed by the passion that they bring to their problems. And when I went out to make the site visit for this varsity invent team, the young women were able to explain the problem so well to me. And I asked them how they knew so much about the problem. And one young woman very bravely said that they knew about the problem because all of their families were just one paycheck away from the sidewalk. Now that's reality. I could feel their passion to solve the problem, and yet I knew that they had very little technical experience. They had no coding experience. They were working on a tent that had solar power, charging station for the moms for their cell phones so they could stay in contact with school and health services. And I knew the girls didn't know how to sew, and yet they were so driven to help solve the problem that there was a lot of just in time and just enough learning, especially when it came to the coding aspects, to those CT and CS aspects that we want all kids to have. And they were absolutely fabulous, and they did what they set out to do in one school year, and it wasn't always easy for them. They struggled, and it's this struggle that we really want to work with other young inventors so that they can create these inventions, they can change the lives of others, but they don't struggle quite so much. So that's my story of the DIY Girls Invent team.
And I want you to tell one other one, Lee. Caitlin, and her desire not to do this work initially.
Certainly. So we've had an invent team here in Massachusetts about, I guess it was in 2012, 2013. And this was a large team. It had 15 boys and 2 girls. And the 2 girls, Olivia and Caitlin, ended up going to the 3rd White House Science Fair with us. And Caitlin was involved with technology in her high school by duress. She ended up in a tech ed class because it was the only class that fit into her schedule. And she had an absolutely fabulous teacher. The teacher said, "Give me a week. Stick with me for a week. Let's see if we can change your mind." She really wanted to be in a drama class, and here she was in a tech ed class. I'm proud to say that the bug bit her. Caitlin stayed in some aspects of tech ed throughout her high school career. Caitlin has just this past year graduated from MIT with a degree in mechanical engineering, and today she's working at OneWeb out of Mountain View, where the company is putting up satellites to provide internet connectivity to developing countries. And she went looking for a company like this because she said that she wanted to be an engineer with a heart. And so I really like sharing Caitlin's statement about being an engineer with a heart. So those are my two stories, and as Stephanie knows, I could tell story after story after story, but I'll spare you today.
Great. If anybody would like more information, you can look at the special issue of the journal on the National Academy of Inventors website on the gender gap in patenting, and we actually have a published article on this topic that I believe you can access for free from their website. And we are also in the final throes of publishing another special issue of that journal with the National Academy of Inventing, and it is solely on invention education. So you can read several research articles from different programs, not just ours, and what the outcomes are with young people. So another question we got here is, it says, as most of our Kids Codes grantees are in startup mode, what support, especially coaching with or district coordinator and or on-site, is available in the Bay Area? Hi, Joe. It's so great to know that you're on, and thank you for the question. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we have these 8 free existing curriculum guides, which you can download from our website for both the teachers, an educator guide, and students. And we would really love to come out and meet with a group of educators who would be committed to partnering with us to be able to add some aspect of coding with the curriculum, and we can share the examples that exist. We're pretty agnostic as to which technology you want to use. We figure it out together and then document that so that we can share it out. And so we are a small team, and so it would be really hard for us to work district by district with too many. So it probably would make sense to partner up with a regional lead in any interested districts within the region. But, you know, if anyone is interested, just let us know and we'll figure out how to make it work, because we are committed to trying to get these kinds of learning opportunities to kids earlier so that we can, you know, we don't want every child to have to be an engineer, and not every child's going to be an inventor. But these ways of working are the workforce skills that we are seeing that are in demand right now and are going to remain in demand as several other skills change with the advent of technology. It's this ability to think creatively, be creative, be inventive, work in teams, and to be agile in picking a technology that goes with a problem and problem finding. That's actually the hardest part. Any other questions? We will be sending the recording of this out, so those of you who missed, and I really apologize that you missed some of the beginning, you will have the audio for the whole thing as well as the slides. So we will definitely send that out. No, okay, go ahead, read it.
So someone from Tampa, Florida has snuck into our webinar here. So Tampa, so glad to see you. I was just in Tampa earlier this week. I'll get back in touch with you about what's going on in Florida, but I'll need you to provide me your email address. And let's see, we've got some other questions here. In your experience, is there a threshold of dosage or a tipping point? I'll share just one dosage with you. We were in Tampa Monday, Tuesday, and half a day on Wednesday. We led a JV infant team camp, if you will. We had 18 students. The students were middle school students, and they left on Wednesday afternoon saying, talking to the Dean of Education at the University of South Florida, about their prototypes, about their models, and how with a prototype it might not work the first time, and it might not work the second time, and it might not work the third time, but they were going to continue to work on their prototypes. This is what my prototype is supposed to do, and this is who it's going to help, this is how it's useful, and this is how it's unique. So that was just a short period of time that I believe had an impact on the students. Obviously, the longer that students have to work on an invention, the longer they have time to think about the CT and the CS that they could utilize in their inventions, the more they're going to learn. But I do see that a short dosage does have an effect on kids.
So just one other point on that. When I got here, I was very familiar with the research around a one-year intervention, like a one-year experience finding a problem and inventing a solution as our partner, would typically not lead to lasting change for the student or for the school. And so, the research showing these kinds of major transformations in college and career trajectories of the young women was encouraging. And when I went out and visited sites that we'd worked with 5 years ago, I was very surprised to see banners still in the school office and to hear the stories of how that 1 year's experience has now morphed. And many districts that we've come to work with in the past are now building whole pathways for their young people that start in elementary school, go through middle school, and continue on through high school. It's really exciting to see so many sites developing pathways, and we'd be happy to share information about what those pathways look like. One particular school that I visited has taken project-based learning into every subject area from 9th grade on, and the invention education work is actually a capstone activity in the 12th grade. And I can see how the young women that we worked with from that school had a lot more confidence in what they could do because of the project-based learning experience that they'd had in the earlier grades. And so I would say it's ideal if these activities can be linked across 3 and 4 years. But as Lee said, yes, you can do it in a very short period of time and have an impact. Let's see, we have maybe a couple more.
So just real quick, I wanted to flag that Chris put in the comments, so all 11 regions in California now have STEAM hubs. So that has been something that's been growing over the last few years. And as of this year, all 11 regions now have a STEAM hub that is affiliated with the County Office of Education in that region. And so they are another great resource for Kids Code grantees. The CDE webpage has all that contact info. So when we follow up, we can make sure we include that resource as well.
I think we have gotten through all the questions. All right. Okay, well, I would just want to thank everyone again. Heather, did you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Sure.
And again, just really excited. We definitely will be getting in touch with the leads, and thank you, Chris, for the recommendation.
Yeah, so I also just want to thank everyone who joined us today, whether you joined us at the beginning or you got in a little late. As was mentioned, we'll send out a link so you'll have the whole recording. Thanks to all of our panelists, whether you joined online or via chat. Chris, thanks for being able to connect there. And we'll follow up with a number of other resources as well, as we've kind of mentioned throughout the webinar. And then again, we'll be planning a few follow-up activities. So Lemelson-MIT mentioned a few of their particular events. We talked about the summits as well. And so if there are particular areas where you have interest or needs in your programs as you are getting those up and running, please feel free to reach out to myself or Chris or others, and we can make sure that we build that into future programming. So that's it for me. Thanks, everyone.